for posterity and all that. And be aware that we are recording this. So welcome to Canvas homepage options. This is, we've got about an hour-ish or so where we're going to talk about the different options that are available. How do we go in and change those? And then some of the trade-offs and some of the logistics involved behind each of those options. Now, the other big disclaimer is on all this is that all of this presumes you having a good hold of your particular course context. And a few of those things, just to get you percolating on this, if you're involved in a program, not in the Gen Ed, you know, are they used to a particular Canvas structure? And or conversely, if you're in a one of the technical programs, does your program have a standard or consistent organization or approach to your different course sites? If not, that could be a fruitful conversation to have at a department meeting as well. And there's always different things that could be said about that as well. Now, in the Gen Ed world, obviously we don't have those folks, but usually we get one more kick. Well, they only get one kick at a can with us, and then they move along with their technical lives and the way they go. So these are some of the considerations as far as you put work and effort into intentionality with how you're arranging and deciding which of these pathways merits some elbow grease and which maybe might be more of a pass for your context. Having in mind the instructional context that you're working with is going to be key to answering those. Because again, despite what the educational technology industrial complex will tell you, there is no silver bullet for knowing your instructional design in the context of what your instructional needs are. So that being said, let's switch over to a unsuspecting Canvas site here that we can play with some of this stuff. Where the heart of all this action is, as far as how do I decide what my different Canvas homepages are, by default, you get what they call the recent activity stream, which is, there's intentionality behind it, but it isn't very good. And I have yet to see many contexts where it's a very helpful thing. But I can go in and change that anytime I want by going into a specific Canvas course, going to home. Then I've got my little choose homepage guy here on the right-hand side. When I left click that, I get a pop-up menu, and this is where I make those decisions. And again, course activity stream is usually the default, but also be aware we have these others, pages, modules, assignment list, and syllabus. And basically, of these 5 different options, I would encourage you to consider 3 of them seriously. And the other 2, if you have a very special need or a very special instructional context, then maybe that's a good fit for you. And maybe I just haven't heard that case made. But at any rate, wherever the solid green dot is, that's going to indicate what the option is that's currently activated. In this case, that just says pages. And we'll come to that in turn, but before we dig into the deeper ones, let me just flip this over to course activity stream by clicking that radio button and then saying save, beep, bop, boop. Now this is the same course, but now the recent activity stream comes into play. What this does is this is showing more recent updates. Any activity that's happened in the class since the last time I've been there, it's going to show me updates on that. And always a good health and hygiene practice is to look at it through student view on the right-hand side. So we'll click on that. Ooh, very exciting and not very different. So we'll leave student view very quickly. But just so you understand this, the idea is if I go to announcements as the instructor and say, okay, welcome to fall. Ooh. And then I very very instructorally bang my head on a keyboard and say save. Ta-da. There's that. But now if I go back to home and go to student view, he says, whoops. Oh, I realized I forgot to do something. But anyhow, the intent would be that it would now show up that announcement was posted. So that then would show here as a line item. So if you're doing lots of dynamic content and you're going to be just putting in new stuff all the time, maybe the activity stream might be good for you, but be aware for static stuff or fixed stuff, it's a hard road to get there. It doesn't really showcase that. So not really what it is. The assignments list, again, going back to my choose homepage on the home of there and clicking that and saying save, that's going to change my course homepage to be organized by my assignment groups first and then my specific assignments. So I've got an assignment group named individual app post response, and then everything in there, and then scroll. My second category or assignment group is assignments, very exciting, nothing in there. And then individual rebuttal, so on and so forth. So it's then showing me each of those assignments under the assignment group. I think I have seen one instructor use this as a homepage, and the way they did it is they made their assignment groups, which if in Canvas world, if you're not familiar with that, if you want to pretend I'm saying categories of assignments instead, then please pretend I'm saying that at this point. They made their assignment groups or categories of assignments be by week or unit, I think it was. So unit 1, here's all the assignments for that, unit 2. So when they came to the homepage and scrolled through that, it all worked and looked very exciting and very good. The problem with that then is that unless you're willing to really commit and organize your assignment groups to that task, then it kind of gets a little messy. But one of the other options. So those are the 2 of the 5 options that I don't really recommend because there's not a lot of upside on them. But again, know your instructional context. Before we trek onward, has anybody used assignment list or course activity stream or encountered those somewhere? And it got very, very quiet. Excellent. Okay. So those are 2 of the 5 options. Again, maybe you're the one person with the context out there that has some traction for you. The other 3 though are the ones that I would give a little more consideration to, and we'll start with pages. And typically, a lot of people take a while to discover in their canvassing what a page is. So let's start there, and then we can work our way backwards to that. So back in our little course site here, all our exciting stuff, woohoo. But I'll notice on the left-hand side, I have a pages. And if I go to that, that's going to show me all sorts of exciting stuff. But because I've already designated a page, welcome to our course, as the front page, it's going to show me that most especially. But I can go to view all pages and see all the different pages I have in here. And I have all sorts of exciting things, like I have a technology requirements page where I've put in links to Canvas and whatnot. And for those of you doing asynchronous or Zoom, you've probably seen this with our Start Here module. But what it is, a page is just one little placeholder that you can load up a number of resources around a related theme or concept. So in this case, technology requirements. It could also be late assignment policy. It could also be accessibility. It could be, whatever discrete chunk of related information you have. So in this case, late assignment policy. But I can go in there, and if I want to make a custom page that isn't there, I've got like usual in Canvas, top right of an area, I've got plus whatever it is, in this case, page. And when I do that, as hopefully we all know in Canvas, it'll then present us with a form saying, okay, Hotshot, you want to do this? Here's the stuff I need to know to go out and do that for you. In this case, it's just a name, and we'll say, I don't know, group project info. And again, I'll professorially bang my head on a keyboard, all the exciting stuff. But do know that I have access to put in links to other areas of the course. So I could say, you know, read this announcement. And I can go to my little announcements area under my links tab here and say, welcome to fall. Woohoo! Now I've got a hyperlink to that announcement. In a similar manner, I could say, read this document resource. And I can go to the files area, files tab over here, and find whatever magical file I care to find. We'll randomly pick this random PDF. And or likewise, I can also put in an image using, wait for it, the images tab over here. And it'll show me all the exciting different things I have in here. And we've got a little autocorrect meme there. So I can use these links, files, and images to load up this page with whatever kind of resources that I care to. Also, those same three tabs are also available to me in assignments. They're also available to me in announcements, quizzes, anywhere I go in Canvas. I also have access to really quickly drop in links or upload new images, new files, and drop links to those in my resource. So if I say save and publish to my page, now I have a page. And I could go further, and if I want to say, this is what I want students to see when they hit my course homepage, I could hit my little three dots menu, and I get all sorts of exciting options. I'm going to say use as front page. And that's going to designate that with our little gray rectangle there. So now what all that buys me is if I go back to home, and go to our new best friend in the world, choose homepage on the right-hand side, I can now say pages and save that. So it's going to think and chug, chug, chug. So now the first time students come into the course, they're going to see this page. And I can customize that and do all sorts of other exciting things. Now, typically how this is deployed with other instructors and that I've used in my courses is that you use it for weekly, like this is what's coming up each week. So if I go in, let me find my example here. Goodness. Go back to the right screen. There we go. So for each week then, I would make a custom page under pages. And this happens to be week 16 of one of my old history courses. And I would have the learning objective, due dates, and then links to, in this case, a podcast, and then for a final project, things relevant to that. And I could, if I go back under my other pages, and view all pages in a likewise manner. I've got all my other weeks here. So let's say week 4, I'd have a little cartoon to set the mood because history. And then these are objectives. These are links to how to read a primary source in history, Teddy Roosevelt essay, so on and so forth. Links to assignments, links to their project, so on and so forth. So each week, I would go into my home page and I would choose homepage and or change that to be whichever of those pages I wanted to be. So if it was the end of week 3 and I wanted week 4 to be it, then I would say use as front page, and then that would be the home page for that week. And then I would change that for each week. So some of the advantages of that for the pages standpoint is that you can customize that and only highlight kind of at a chunk. Like this week, out of all this stuff in Canvas, you only need to focus on these things. Bing, 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 bing. So they don't have to go here, there, or everywhere. I can just really focus their attention on the key things they need that week. Likewise, I can be responsive to that if I'm doing that each week. I can drop in stuff like, wow, you guys came into lab and woof. Everybody needs to go and review this how to have lab safety document or whatever it happens to be. It can be very responsive if I'm doing that week to week. And the other option is that I can also not only customize things, but I can make the look of each week a little different too. So as I get feedback from students like, can you just highlight the assignments or the due dates again? I can do that for next week's homepage there. Now the trade-offs on that though is how students being able to understand, well, this is all good for this week, but how do I go back to last week's stuff and get that? Because if they're just looking at the homepage, it's gone if I'm changing it week by week, which incidentally you don't have to do with pages, but again, that's just the stereotypical usage that we've seen with people using that. And likewise, making sure you're consistent with the format so students know what to expect and where to find, and then also when you're going to change that if you're changing it each week. Yeah, and the other part is thinking about if students blow by that and don't go through my front door of my course, am I going to support that? And we'll come back to that idea in a minute. But that is the idea of pages for your homepage and organizing your course by weekly pages. Questions or comments or war stories or thoughts on pages as your Canvas organizing and front page?
Mike?
Yeah.
Do you tie in your video lecture to a page? Your 5-minute, 10-minute lecture?
Yeah. Let's see if I've got an example. Let's see. Let me go back here. But yeah, I could embed videos on there. I could have a dedicated page to those. Whatever I want to do. The nice thing about pages is it's a wide open, pardon the pun, it's a wide open blank canvas. So I can customize the formatting, I can customize the resources, drop in whatever I want, put in tables. Yeah, all sorts of good stuff. Let me see if I can find real quick. Yeah, here we go. So here's week 5. I had it for week 4, developed the muddiest point from the material. And then I would lay out for week 5, here's more new stuff, then refine our understanding of what we just learned. And here's my podcast response to respond to whatever he had. And again, this is in a page. So I embedded my little instructor podcast as well as resources for them to explore further. I don't know if I shared my
Okay, a slightly different format this week, but hopefully you'll like this and staring at my grizzly mug, something that's in the faces of folks.
Progressivism, good stuff.
Good Americans were certainly not to do that.
So in this case, I was just sharing a little recording of sharing some screencasts and whatnot to address the group's questions. So about the progressive era, which I could talk about for free all the time. So yeah, you can embed videos, you can embed YouTube videos, even if you aren't doing bespoke videos. Yeah, all sorts of stuff. And Canvas pages are like a lot of the rest of the Canvas. It doesn't really care. You can load up whatever kind of content you want. So yeah, does that help, David? Or
Yes, there is a setting. If we can step back to the settings for selecting your home screen.
Mhm.
I do not have the option to select pages. I added pages to, I enabled pages. So now if I go to the home screen and want to choose a home page, it says pages front page with an asterisk. It says front page must be set first. What does that
Right.
mean?
Right. So what that's saying is when you go to your pages, none of them have been indicated. You haven't told it which one you want to be your front page.
Okay.
And you'll notice as I scroll through my very long list of pages, I've got one with the little gray rectangle of happiness that this is the one for front page. But I can designate that with the little three dots out to the right of any of these. And I say, well, I want to make week 5 my front page. So now my little rectangles move down to that. So now because I've told it pages is what I want to use and I've changed that, boop, there it is. So that's the step you're missing there.
Done. Thank you.
No problem. Anybody else on pages or organizing your Canvas stuff around that? Okay. We shall move forward then on to the modules then. Modules, just as a kind of primer for those, you've got an area in Canvas called modules. And basically, what you've got here is you're creating a sequence, like a well-marked step 1, step 2, step 3 for whatever it happens to be. And you're just loading that up. In this case, instead of a page, we're loading up the modules. And typically the usage that our faculty and about every faculty I've ever run into is they'll organize it by either unit or chapter or week. And so in this case, you can say for week 1, I've got these things here. So, and these little icons here, more Canvas veterans will recognize familiarity with those, but each of those is indicating it's a different kind of resource. So this one's saying I've got a page, and if I mouse over it, it gives me the cheat sheet, an assignment, and then a link, and then a file or attachment, another web link, and another page. But if students click on that, the week 1 course stuff, this is just a page. Again, I embedded some resources. What are we going to do this week and how are we going to do it? Great. But now I've got a little next button over here on the right. This is how students proceed through each one of those items. Now they can drop in and out and go back and forth, but part of the intent of modules is you're creating a sequence of look at this or do this, then do this, or look at this, or so on and so forth. So 1, 2, 3, 4 this week. So now I've got an assignment that students could go in and submit that. And then I've got a previous now to go back to where I started from in this module. And because it's the first module, there's no previous button. That's as far back as I can go. But I can just march right through that sequence of those items that I put in there. In this case, an external link to some content out in OER Commons. Then I've got a little screen capture PDF file. And then I've got an external link here.
And just do a quick little recording, blah, 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 and then I could.
I've got to watch what I put in these demo courses. Never know whose face will pop up there. But, and then so on and so forth. So I just keep trucking on through all these things. But at the end of the day, the whole idea is they're any kind of resource, but arranged in a very specific sequence. 1, 2, 3, bing, bing, bing. And I can go to choose my home and choose homepage and say modules. And this time it's way less pickier than pages. Doesn't care if I've got my modules built out or not. You want modules? Here you go. You got modules. And I can go on and on and on with these. So let's say I wanted a week 2 module, again, being Canvas world, wherever I'm in this case, modules at the top right, big green happy button plus module. What do I want to call it? Why, I want to call it week 2. This is the stuff I need to go and do that for you. Great, go do it, add the module. And it's the thing about modules is if you never play with these, just remember as you add a module, it's going to put it at the bottom. So I have to go down here, and then it gives me some helpful ideas. I can drag and drop files here or whatnot, but I've also got a little plus button to the right of my week 2. And that's going to give me a little interface where I can navigate through all my stuff, all my assignments in this course, all my quizzes in this course, all my files, all my pages, blah. So let's say I had a page that I want to remind them about the late assignment policy. I click on that and add item. There we go. And then let's say I want to go into files. I want to throw in a file that I've got somewhere, a model post for something I'm having them do that week. And then let's say I'm going to have them actually go in and do an application post. So there we go. And I'll add that. So real quick, I can build that out. And the nice thing about modules is just like everything else in Canvas, I have that fail safe. I can publish that. Which makes it available to students from that moment, the green little checkness of happiness. Or if I want to kind of develop things or tweak things in the background, I can unpublish that so it becomes a behind the scenes area that students can't see. So, and then likewise, I can drag these. I've got if I mouse over the top left corner of a module, I can drag this up to drop it below my week 1. So I've set up my home, I've choose my home page, I've gone to modules, and I've added modules, and then I've filled in content with that, and then they can go through that in a very distinct sequence. The advantages of it is you have a very clear sequence. And the nicest thing is you can also enforce that. You can set prerequisites such that it won't unlock the next module or the next things in a module until they submit assignment or look at a page. Now, big disclaimer, it isn't anything, it's a very crude kind of check. Like if I have a page of content with a PDF, as soon as they open the page or the PDF, it's going to check that and unlock the next thing. So it's not anything where it's checking that, or they have to stay on this page for 10 minutes before to show that they're reading it or anything fancy. But I can also audit the progress of people through particular modules. And I can also plug in something called Mastery Paths, which is a whole nother session, but just be aware if adaptive learning or customizing the paths that people go through, or once students do some initial tripwire thing that can determine how much or how little resources they get, think Mastery Paths in Canvas. Very fun tool. The trade-offs of it, though, is that students don't always go through everything that we put blood, sweat, and tears putting in there, particularly if there's no prereqs. And for some students, if you do enable those prereqs, that can be just, quote, one more damn thing that gets in their way, or the technology is holding me back, or one more obstacle. So that's, yeah, there's a lot of other things we could say about modules, but that's a pretty high level. For distance classes, a lot of people tend to default to those, not to put any value judgment on it that it's better or superior. But it has become sort of a de facto default, not only with our NC State distance offerings, but other institutions as well. So that's modules. Thoughts, comments, or war stories on modules?
Does the module favor a visual learner over assignments favor somebody that prefers to read?
Yeah, you always want to be careful of that VARC nonsense, because we're all we're all mixed of some kind. Nobody's purely a visual learner. Nobody's purely an auditory. Nobody's read write kinetic. So it, I guess the fairest answer to your question would be you could load in any variety of content. So if you wanted to go through and check those boxes, for week 2, let me find, a podcast for my audio folks that's explaining the content, or make my own little audio recording. And then for people who are more lean towards more visual or have those elements, let me arrange the content in a Venn diagram with last week's concepts, or a concept map, or, something like that. I could just load up each of those modules with all sorts of multimedia stuff each week, and or I could create a page for week 2 or unit 2 and just load that up with supplemental resources. So if they didn't like the way I was unpacking the concepts, you can say, hey, here's a resource you can look at for different ways or expanding on this content. So lots of different ways you could get into that, but there's nothing limiting or predictive either way as far as just using modules. They're just blank Tupperware containers that you can put in whatever kind of crazy stuff you want. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I have a list for week 1 and an assignment. Can I take everything in an assignment?
Yeah.
6 items, drop them into a module and call it week 1?
Yep.
And then they both then exist?
Yep. Or conversely, you could load up the assignment, as we'll look at in a minute with our last viable option here, the syllabus view. You can load up your assignments with that content, and then just have for your module that assignment, which then has embedded in it the links to all that stuff.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
That does. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's let anybody else questions on modules or war stories or experiences with modules or as a student or whatnot. Okay. Well, let's flip over then to our last of the 3 viable Canvas organization and homepage options, and that would be the syllabus view. Now, syllabus is a weird thing, and it leads to some confusion because of its name, and that's okay. But on your course menus and any of your Canvas shells, sooner or later, you'll scroll up or down, and there it'll be. And if you click on syllabus, you'll see all sorts of exciting stuff. But basically, think of the syllabus page as 2 different components. This first part we've got up here where basically above this course summary line, so all this content from instructors down to course orientation, that is basically a page. It looks, works, feels, smells like a Canvas page and everything but name. And when I go to edit this though, I will find out, and as we know, edit and the little pencil icon is the key to power throughout Canvas, where I can revise anything or change anything I don't like pretty much at any time. I'll see all sorts of exciting things, but I can't get at this stuff, the second piece of this, the course summary stuff. There's no place to edit that up here. And if I'm not seeing the course summary stuff, I've got a little checkbox to enable that. But again, in this, just like everything else, I can go and say, well, I've got a file for that. Oh, there's my little files tab, buddy. I can go in here and find whatever it is. Let's say it's this. And then there's my link to that file. I can put in my images or upload a new one, so on and so forth. So this top part I can manipulate with that edit part. But everything below this for my course summary in a kooky fun way is controlled by what I set up in assignments. Are we having fun yet? And Tiara, this is one of those places where Canvas is kind of a quirky LMS for some other ones. What you see in grades is controlled by assignments, and what you see in course summary is controlled by assignments. Are we having fun yet? So on my homepage, I can again go to my trusty choose homepage and say I want this crazy syllabus thing as my homepage. Beep bop boop. And oop, maybe did I do that? I don't know. Maybe I did. There you go. It helps if you actually click the button. And so now this will be my course homepage. So the way to think of this is everything in the course summary is basically my list of assignments ordered by the due date of the assignment. So the latest ones will be at the bottom, and the earliest ones will be at the top. And as they go through this, it'll gray out each of those items, but they'll still be there. It doesn't automatically hide them, but it does order them by that. So up here, I can treat this as a page and embed my links, my files, any text, my smiling face, whatever I want. But then to change anything for what's below that, I go to my assignments. So the key to this is that now my key component of organization for my course, where I would take all that stuff, as David was asking, all the content that I would have over in my modules, if I wanted to go that route, I would take all that stuff and now I'm going to fold them into an assignment. So what does that mean? So let's go back to our week 2 example. So let's say I want to go with the syllabus view, and in week 2, I'd want him to look at the late assignment policy. I wanted to look at the model example and then do the discussion post. If that was my week 2, in the syllabus world, if we're organizing our course around that, that means these first 2 items that I want him to look at, the late assignment policy and the model one, I'm going to have to put the link into the assignment shell for that discussion. So if I click on that, and that's hopefully we've seen that how hard and complicated that is to do, I can come in here and edit with my little thing or do a new one. And I can say down here, all the way down at the bottom, and I can say, here's a model post, and go to my files tab and say, boop, there it is. And I can say late assignment policy, if I can type it, there we go. And that's a page. So I go back to my links and my pages, and there's my late assignment policy, boop. So now I can say save. Whoop, I'm a bad boy here. It should always have a due date. So let's say that's going to be due the 24th at 11 a.m. All right. Always put a due date on your assignments. And then I'm going to save it. Oops. Well, apparently I need a class category there. Good times. So now I'm going to save it. So essentially what I've done is I've taken all that individual content that I want to go through that I put in as separate items in the modules, and I've just condensed that into this assignment shell. So now if I go back to my home page, it's going to think about it, and it's going to put that item, because I made that latest date, and is 2020, that would be further down the list. So when they click on that, then it's going to be like a one-stop shop of what do I have to do? Why are we doing this? Here's all the stuff I need to do it. And man, that is a really lengthy post. Wow. I would want to refine that, I think. So, and that way, if you're teaching a hybrid or an on-ground course, the advantages to this is if you ask your students 9 times out of 10, what do they want out of a Canvas site? Most of the survey data that we get back from our students, and seems to correlate with others, is what do I have to do? When do I have to do it? And where? And this is very, very, very centered around that approach. And or be aware for all the blood, sweat, and tears we can put into making modules, we can put into making pages or whatnot. On the mobile Canvas app for students, there's a to-do tab that basically is the bottom part of the course summary of here. Here's the due dates that are coming up on a 7 rolling day window. Here's all the information when you click on them. So sometimes students will go bypass our front doors to our course sites that we put all this love and blood and sweat and tears in, and just drive right to the assignments. What's due? What has points? Right. How do I do this? So the other trade-offs are there's no mechanism to enforce that students are going to look at that model post that I put in there, or that they're going to look at that late assignment there. Yeah, it's there, but there's no way to enforce or audit that. And likewise, there's no way to collapse this. So after these other assignments way back in 2015, boy, is that assignment still hanging around. This page is always going to be as long as all of your assignments are. So those are some of the trade-offs to it. It's very just the facts. What do I have to do? When do I have to do it? But again, I'm loading up the assignment shells with all the stuff I would either put on a page or I would load into a module. So questions about the syllabus view, modules view, course home pages, or the pages organization of our Canvas sites. Tiara, go ahead.
Okay, so as far as the attendance, for all of the online classes, how does the attendance work? So are we still hosting like Zoom courses where they have to attend? Is it kind of up to us whether we do live sessions or not?
I lost the first part of that. I'm sorry.
How are we counting attendance with the online classes?
Oh, okay. Let's hold off on that question because we're looking at home pages right now, but
Okay.
we'll come back to that. That's an interesting question. Was not ready for that one, but that's why people ask the question. Anything else on home pages or organizing your sites or your Canvas sites around any one of these? Ron?
No, I'm fine. I'm just
Oh, okay.
listening as usual.
Okay. And your little ghost cat
Something
too.
wrong?
There.
Quick question, Mike. What should we suggest to the students to do if they have no experience with Canvas? How should they want to look at the screen? We guide them to that.
Yeah, and that goes to an excellent sidebar of each of these, particularly if you opt into the pages organization and homepage and the structuring your course around that, or the module. Setting expectations, particularly at a distance, and reinforcing that by land, sea, and air, by using the carrot, by using the stick, that if I put all this work into developing these modules, you have to go through all that content for each week, or you'll be missing pieces that can help. Likewise, for pages, going through all that content. Likewise, for the syllabus view, going through all those links that I put on there before submitting your assignment versus, oh, here's what I got to do. So reinforcing expectations is vital really in all of these. And not just verbally, because we know how it is. I was that guy, I would point literally onto the wall behind me of the 8 foot by 6 foot saying, this is the due date for what you need to do this weekend. I would hand them a piece of paper saying, this is the due date for what is due this weekend, after pointing at the wall, and have it in Canvas, and people would still say, well, I didn't know something was due. And I used to have hair once upon a time too. So reinforcing as well as the mechanisms, and not just saying, but also having that in there, and by land, sea, and air of, oh, you didn't read this, you didn't account for this, your assignment doesn't have this element, you're going to lose points. Accounting for that in a way to use the stick, but then also for carrot, maybe early on, just throw something into an assignment link or a page link or buried in a module. Click on me to get an important message. And if you're reading this, then send me a thing and you get 1 extra credit point or whatever it is. So then you're incentivizing and reinforcing, hey, this is important stuff. So yeah. Does that answer your question, David?
Yes, it does.
Okay. I can get on a soapbox about that one. But for all these, explaining to students that so they don't have to, do a mind meld to see what you're seeing and assuming what you're assuming of this is the only way you could look at my Canvas site. No. Make articulating it and enforcing it by land, sea, and air. You have to go through all the modules, or you have to read all the directions and resources that I put in the assignment, or you have to read everything on the weekly pages.
On the student view, Mike, I haven't seen anything different than on the top right, view course stream, view course calendar, view notifications, and to do. We remind them constantly to go to the right side of the screen and check that. Is there any logic there with student success?
You kind of lost me on that one.
Well,
Go to student view.
Do the students have any control over what they see, or is it always going to be?
Oh no! When they get down to the course level, no, you're driving the bus. Except for on mobile. If you've never looked at your course through the mobile app, highly encourage you to do that. But on both Android and iOS versions, there's a to-do. And if you click on that, they're basically in the syllabus world of they're just seeing that list of your assignments with the due dates. And it's on a rolling 7-day window, but I think it'll buffer and load out the next week as they scroll down. So yeah, students, that's the only choice that they get. When they click home on your course, assuming they go through your front door of your course homepage, they're going to see whatever you've got set up, whether on mobile or on a desktop or a tablet or who knows. So beyond that, yeah, they don't get much customization option. But what they see as far as what's populating that coming up and to do, that's driven by due dates or calendar events that you've populated within that course.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure, yeah. Other questions about course organization, pages, modules, syllabus, etc.?
Yeah, just a quick question. As far you mentioned the Canvas app, how usable is that? How compared to the stuff we're able to do online on the desktop app versus the mobile app?
Yeah, I've never been asked that question. Not a usability expert by any stretch. I've played one as a duffer now and again, but generally it's a little more user friendly if you're more used to kind of apps. I have an iPhone, and for browsing my course sites in Canvas, it's a little easier, but then there's some things where there's like, a really dense image file. And no matter how much I pinch and try and expand to see all of it at once, it just doesn't come across very well. But from putting a faculty hat on for designing and building my course, I wouldn't wish it on anybody to try and design and build your Canvas site off of a tiny screen. Whew, that would have some issues. So I would say in that context, very anti-user friendly. But as far as for day-to-day stuff from a student perspective, yeah, it's a pretty viable thing. But again, if I'm putting a lot of dense visual chart imagery out there with 8-point font, and that's somehow necessary for my learning context, then I would maybe want to put a cautionary out there week one to, hey, you can access these things in my course on mobile, but be aware and hope you have a good vision prescription for your glasses because you'll need them. So
okay, that makes sense. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, but I would encourage you to play with it. There is, when you go to your app store, whether you're Android or iOS, if you're in the smartphone world, me making assumptions over here, that you look at that the Canvas student app, there is a teacher app, but frankly, it isn't, I can't see the value of that versus having that student perspective and that little student view of your course. So yeah, because that can help you find out how students who would just be looking through your course on a mobile, what they would experience and some of your design assumptions or how you've set things up, whether that's your page where you have really dense tables that, you know, squish down on a small screen, but on a full browser, they look, you know, nice and roomy or whatnot. So it can be an eye-opening experience, but education. Anything else on course organization, modules, syllabus pages, and home pages? We're all stunned with ruminating in scholarly ways. Okay, well, let's circle around then to Tiara's question about attendance then at a distance. There's a couple ways to approach that. Let's start with a hybrid context. In a hybrid context, if you have regular weekly live meetings, whether they be on Zoom like this or face-to-face, endangered species that is in COVID times, one way to go about doing it that's has some trade-offs, but can be helpful is to set up an assignment. So for my hybrid web conferencing classes, I would set up for each week's mandatory live meeting, I would set up an assignment and, you know, say whatever, week 3 live meeting. And I would usually make it a 0 points assignment, complete, incomplete. So then I could just really quickly after class go through and check in SpeedGrader for everybody who was there, and somebody that wasn't do the not check. So they get the red X of doom to document that. So that's one way you can do attendance in a hybrid context. The other way is there is the roll call attendance tool. Some people love it, some people are not fans, but it is another way to track attendance that's built into Canvas beyond our scope to get into here and now today, but I'll just say it's there. And as you get into the world of asynchronous, though, section 920, 921, et cetera, that's where attendance can become a more floaty concept. And some way for, at that point, how you can measure attendance is having some amount of regular weekly work to show that they're there. That they're engaged, they're doing something, they're involved with your course and doing the tasks that you're assigning them, whatever it may be. Maybe it's submitting an assignment, maybe it's posting a discussion, maybe it's posting a video in Flipgrid, maybe it's doing a peer review, who knows? Some kind of designated mandatory task to say that they are there, they're a human and they're engaged in doing the coursework. So at that point though, it really goes back to what's your overall instructional design, what's the context, what's the instructional needs of it for that. Does that help, Tiara, or no?
Yes.
Okay. It's a good question. That's a good question. Was that what you had your hand up about or no?
No, I was going to ask, as far as the syllabus goes and the modules, are we only publishing like what they are allowed to work on so that they're not getting too far in, or is it all open?
Well, and again, it does sound like a broken record, but it depends on your instructional needs and your instructional context. If you have no interaction with classmates and there's no, there's no interactive things and there's nothing that they really need significant instructor turnaround on something before they can proceed to the next task, then yeah, self-paced, toot, let her go, let her rip, have it all out there, let them go. But if there's something where they need to work with their peers in whatever context, a peer review, replying to the work of their colleagues, group problem solving, small group activities, whatever it may be, then probably a full bore, self-paced, everything's published from week 1 to 16 on day 1. Maybe that might not work for that instructional context. But again, the tools will let you do whatever you want, but it's really for you having that answer of what am I trying to do? What are the instructional needs here? So really, yeah. And you can publish and unpublish both the course assignments, pretty much all the way down the line.
Okay.
But once you publish the course, you can still unpublish modules or unpublish assignments, so on and so forth.
Okay, so it'll just, if I unpublish certain parts of it, they can just see it on the syllabus, but not necessarily access modules that's not published.
Correct. And the way to play with that is your student view. Because then you can see as you're playing with, well, I think this is published or unpublished, or I think this is the way I want this set up or what to be available now, right now. Let me go over to home and student view and see if I can click on that and what do I get. So yeah, you've got that fail safe kind of, so even though I've got the course published, I can still, just have weeks 1 through 4 out there to start the semester and be playing with weeks 5 through 16 and tinkering and, evolving that behind the scenes.
Great.
Sure. Good questions. Good stuff. Anything else on course homepages, pages, syllabus?
Mike, how do you send a welcome email to the class roster out of Canvas?
You have to have the course published. And until you do that, you can't. But once you publish the course, you can go to inbox and compose a message to the class and say hello and all that other good stuff.
Inbox, there, I see it.
Yep. All right. Well, I think that is all of our time for the wide, wacky world of Canvas course homepages and organizing. So I will stop the recording for that.